The flagship, that's where the S2 Pro sits in the Hiboy S2 line. With a model that's evocative of the Xiaomi 365, it does at points achieve that title. The key aspects differentiating the Pro from the rest of the S2 range are its battery life and the 10-inch solid tyres which complement the rear dual shock absorbers. Now the battery allows for a maximum range of up to 25 miles and the 500 watt motor will propel you up to 19 miles per hour when in sport mode. Combined with an IP54 water resistance rating, cruise control, integrated mobile app and the option of attaching a seat, the S2 promises a lot of features. Welcome to Electric Scooter Insider. I'm Josh and I've been reviewing electric scooters for the last few years, and it's my mission to help you choose the right scooter. So if you're here because you want the most substantial, complete and comprehensive review of the Hiboy S2 Pro, then sit back, strap in and enjoy. In this review we're going to cover 8 key areas. Who is it best for? What are the pros and cons? The value for money, alternatives, design, ride quality, performance and safety, and then we'll finish with the extra features. With a top speed of 90 miles per hour and a maximum load of 220 pounds, the S2 Pro has the pedigree to satisfy most first-time riders' needs. But for those who are looking for a versatile scooter that can tackle varying types of urban terrain, it does fall a little short. Despite its 10-inch solid tyres and rear dual shock absorbers, the S2 Pro doesn't manage to tackle cracks and crevices as well as other models like say the TURBOANT X7 Pro or the TURBOANT M10 with their air-filled tyres. Now whilst the 25-mile range is up there with the best budget scooters, it does struggle to deliver a smooth ride outside of pristinely kept roads and sidewalks, especially at high speeds. So if you have your eyes firmly set on the S2 Pro, just make sure that you're sticking to inner city routes rather than exploring the suburban areas for the best ride possible. What are the pros? Well, it has a quick acceleration curve. Its design has also been inspired by the Xiaomi 365. You get the option to attach a seat and you get the IP54 water resistance rating. Plus, it's got those flat resistance tyres. Now, what's not so good about the scooter? Well, it's heavier than similar scooters and it does lack that smooth ride quality. For the features on offer, you get a pretty neat scooter, but when it comes to the overall performance, which at the end of the day is the determining factor as to whether a scooter is worth its salt or not, there are some cheaper options that outperform the S2 Pro. However, where the S2 Pro recovers in terms of value for money is the welcome addition of adding a seat. With some very simple steps, you'll have the luxury of sitting back and having a far less taxing commute or ride around the town. The next best option for a good quality seated scooter is far more expensive. So when you actually consider where does the value for money for the Hiboy S2 lie, I would say that if you want a seated scooter, this is the cheapest one that you're going to find, and therefore it may be a good option for you if you're on a budget. What other scooters should you consider? Well, first up we have the TURBOANT X7 Pro. Now this one is priced at $550 in the US, and in the UK it retails for around £400. Now this has a top speed of 20 miles per hour, a maximum range of 30 miles, it weighs 33 pounds and it can support up to 275 pounds of rider weight. So why is it better than the Hiboy S2 Pro? Well, it has a slightly longer range, 5 extra miles to be precise. It also has a superior ride quality thanks to its big 10-inch air-filled plush tyres, and it can support heavier riders. In fact, this model can support 55 pounds more weight than the Hiboy S2 Pro. And then the redeeming feature of the TURBOANT X7 Pro is its removable battery, which you can just remove and then put a new one in, essentially doubling your maximum mileage. And why is it worse than the Hiboy S2 Pro? Well, all this really stems down to is the fact that you can't attach a seat to it. Next up, we have the TURBOANT M10. Now this is priced in the US at $450, but it's not currently available in the UK. This model has a top speed of 20 miles per hour, a maximum range of 18 miles. It weighs 29.8 pounds, so just shy of 30 pounds. And it can take up to 220 pounds of rider weight. Now, why is it better than the Hiboy S2 Pro? Well, there's just two things here. Number one, it's cheaper. You can save $100. And number two, again, it has superior ride quality thanks to those big plush air-filled tires. But why is it worse than the Hiboy S2 Pro? Well, again, just two things here. It has a shorter range. Its range is 7 miles shorter to be precise. And again, you don't have the option to add a seat. The third and final alternative that I've handpicked is the Horizon 10.4. Now in the US, you can pick this up for $739, and in the UK, you can get it for around £600. Now this model has a top speed of 25 miles per hour. It can keep the wheels rolling for up to 20 miles. It weighs 40 pounds and it can support up to 265 pounds of rider weight. So why is it better than the Hiboy S2 Pro? It has a faster acceleration and top speed. So in terms of top speed, that's an extra 6 miles per hour. In terms of acceleration, the Horizon can hit 15 miles per hour in just 4.7 seconds. And then the Hiboy S2 Pro takes around 5.2 seconds. Now the Horizon also has front and rear suspension, which delivers a superior ride quality. It can also support 45 pounds more rider weight than the S2 Pro can. And the Horizon is extremely portable. It has a telescopic stem and folding handlebars and a really simple folding mechanism that makes it nice and compact for storage, but also for carrying around. Now, why is it worse than the Hiboy S2 Pro? You're going to have to spend a little bit extra cash to get your hands on it. So in the US, it costs $190 more, and then in the UK, it costs around £50 more. It's also heavier, so you're going to have about an extra 3.7 pounds of weight, but this is made up for by its enhanced portability. The handlebars on the S2 Pro are similar to most of the S2 range. They have textured rubber grips that afford good control whilst also being resistant to wear and tear. And this adds a layer of durability to the scooter, setting it apart from other cheap models that tend to use foam grips. You'll also find brakes on both sides of the handlebars. The manual handbrake on the right hand side controls the rear disc brake. Now, this is a little bit counterintuitive since brakes on the right hand side typically control the front wheel, whereas the brakes on the left hand side will control the rear wheel. So this does take a little bit getting used to, considering the purposes of each of these brakes has switched. But once you've ridden the Hiboy S2 Pro for a short time, you will eventually acclimatize to this. Next up, on the left hand side, we have the electronic thumb brake. But then if we quickly switch back over to the right hand side again, you're going to find the thumb operated accelerator, and both of these thumb paddles are extremely smooth to operate. Now, it is unusual to see dual brakes that can be operated independently on a budget scooter, since these are more typically reserved for performance scooters that boast blistering top speeds and have powerful brakes on each wheel. But this does actually play in favor of the S2 Pro when it comes to braking performance, which we'll get onto later in the review. Moving on, in the center of the handlebars, you're going to find the neatly designed LED display, which is reminiscent of the Xiaomi 365, and this helps to keep track of your speed, rider mode, cruise control, and the battery level. And at the back of the display, there's a little hook that loops into the rear fender when folded for easy carrying. Whilst the S2 Pro can be considered to be a generally light scooter, and so to put that into perspective, it actually sits in the top 23% where weight is concerned, where it's actually lighter than 77% of all other scooters in our 100 strong database. But it does actually come out as the heaviest scooter under the $550 mark. And this is because it's made from an aviation grade aluminium alloy, which is pretty standard among electric scooters. However, there is a benefit to its chunkier weight, and that's the enhanced durability, making the S2 Pro's frame more than capable of dealing with the wear and tear of everyday use. And then if we just look at the frame in terms of design, it fashions the understated matte black finish that has become synonymous with electric scooters of today. The deck has enough room to give riders space to find a comfortable stance without having awkward feet or body positions. Like the rest of the S2 range, the Pro has a grippy rubber matting that ensures a safe and secure cruise. Some budget scooters install flimsy grip tape material that can easily peel off. The S2 Pro is not one of those. Here's where things get a little bit weird though. On the back of the deck, you're going to find the reinforced rear fender. Now the majority, if not all, of entry-level scooters let you use the rear fender with a dual purpose. The first being a mudguard and the second being a foot brake that allows you to stomp on it in case of emergency stops. The S2 Pro's designers clearly chose to break the established norms of entry-level scooters here, and whether this is good or not is entirely dependent on your perception. On the one hand, the bracket prevents you from wearing the rear solid rubber tyre down. On the other, it requires a change of kind of riding behaviour, especially if you've previously ridden a scooter and used the foot brake. Ultimately, the S2 Pro forces you to adopt a new riding style which may make it less easy to ride straight off the bat, but once you get used to it, it really isn't too much of an issue. Despite the honeycomb design, there is little cushioning from the 10-inch solid tyres. The S2 Pro is, as a result, confined to smooth urban roads and sidewalks, and this especially holds true when pushing the S2 Pro to its peak performance. Anything other than pristine riding conditions will leave your wrist vibrating and your knees shaking. There is one upside to solid tyres though. They're puncture proof, so you can forget about having frustrating flats and doing tyre changes. However, solid tyres do tend to wear after a while. Nevertheless, the reinforced rear fender does take care of eliminating this as much as possible. Overall, the S2 Pro is a durable and robust scooter. The aviation grade aluminium alloy holds up against the pressures of daily use, but you do need to be careful not to take any hard hits to the underside of the deck because this is where the battery is stored. It's also worth noting that the frame is sealed with an IP54 water resistance rating, making it one of the scooters to fall into the 40% of those that are protected from the rain. However, despite its protection against water splashes, I don't advise riding in the rain. The slick, solid tyre rubbers have almost no traction when used in subpar conditions. At £36.3, the S2 Pro can still be picked up and carried with relative ease, though carrying it around for long periods will be a drag. In terms of the load, the S2 Pro can carry the industry standard of £220 of rider weight. The S2 Pro manages to fold in 3 simple steps. First, flip down the folding locking lever, then collapse the stem and click the hook on the back of the handlebars into the latch on the rear fender. The result is a compact and secure scooter that's perfect for stowing away at home, in the office, or in the trunk of your car. It's also worth pointing out that the stem has a thin diameter which makes it easier to hold. Whilst the S2 Pro has been equipped with dual rear shock absorbers, there's no substitute for the solid 10-inch tyres. You can confidently glide over smooth urban roads and sidewalks with ease, but as soon as you up the ante and put the pedal to the metal, the solid tyres' weaknesses are laid bare as your wrists vibrate, knees shake and brain rattles. As with all of my reviews, I like to show you the good and the bad, so with that in mind, let's take a look at the former. The addition of the cruise control function, which has now become a standard feature for electric scooters, means you can give your thumb a rest and enjoy the scenery around you. Plus, if you want a more relaxed ride, there is the option of adding that detachable seat. Now, for those of you looking to explore beyond the confounds of pristine riding environments, you might want to consider the TURBOANT X7 Pro, or if you can afford to splash the cash, the Horizon 10.4 for a superior riding experience. With a top speed of up to 19 miles per hour when in sport mode, the S2 Pro is up there with the fastest of the budget scooters. It also has a surprisingly nippy acceleration rate considering that its motor is mounted up front, which typically leads to a slower start off the line. If you're looking to zip around your local neighborhood, then the speeds of the S2 Pro might just be what you want. Alternatively, if you just want to cruise or have a long commute ahead of you, the comfort mode, which caps your speed at 30 miles per hour, will come in very handy. You simply need to double tap the button on the LED display to change between the different riding modes. The red light is there for sport and the green light is there for comfort. With 3 clicks of this button, you can also activate the cruise control feature. So we've already seen how fast the S2 Pro can go, but how does that stack up against its closest competitors when you apply the factor of price? So using a $500 price range with the S2 Pro's price in the middle, there are 21 comparable models. Of these, it's the pair of Horizon models hogging the plaudits. And as we'll soon see in the next section, the rear-wheel drive of these models makes all of the difference. Following the Horizon duo are another duo of TURBOANT models, the M10 and the X7 Pro. Joining these is the GoTrax G4, which is closely followed by the Hiboy S2 Pro. Ultimately, there's not too much difference between all of these models, but if you want to save a little money, the TURBOANT M10, which is available for $100 less, may be worth considering. Against the backdrop of the scooters that I recommend as alternatives, the Hiboy S2 Pro performs well. Capable of hitting 50 miles per hour in just 5.2 seconds, it is on the tail of the Horizon 10.4 that takes just 4.7 seconds. But this is hardly surprising because both of these scooters sport 500-watt motors. But the reason why the Horizon beats the S2 Pro is because its motor is mounted on its rear wheel as opposed to the front one, as is the case with the S2 Pro. Just like with cars, a rear-wheel drive vehicle of the same weight, power, gearing and tyre size will accelerate quicker than its front-wheel drive counterpart, so the numbers make sense here. Similarly, the larger 500-watt motor of the S2 Pro beats out that of the smaller 350-watt motors found on both the TURBOANT models. A full battery and economic riding will give you a maximum range of 25 miles. However, it's unlikely that you'll actually be able to hit that maximum range every time you ride. The 25-mile range is based on a best case scenario. All electric scooters in the industry use maximum range specs to advertise their scooters. But look, a best case scenario generally includes a 165-pound rider, having the scooter being ridden in the lowest speed setting on flat terrain. So realistically, if you ride the scooter in its fastest settings, you can expect between 12 and 14 miles. Applying the $500 range that we used in the speed versus price comparison earlier, the S2 Pro comes up trumps against the 21 strong list of comparable models. Here, the maximum 25-mile range narrowly falls short of the TURBOANT X7 Pro's 30 miles. The defining difference between these models though is that the X7 Pro features a removable battery that makes charging the scooter extremely convenient and gives you the option to purchase an additional battery to double the maximum mileage. Ultimately though, ride quality plays a big role in how comfortable a scooter is to ride for long periods, and since the S2 Pro only has those solid rubber tyres, it does unfortunately fall short of the X7 Pro, which has those big plush 10-inch air-filled tyres. For maximum comfort though, either the Horizon 13 or 10.4, depending on how much you want to spend, are both fantastic options with their dual suspension systems. The 500-watt motor has enough torque to push the S2 Pro up the majority of gradual inclines. The manufacturer quoted hill climbing credentials put it at 15 degrees, but under my tests, I found that it was able to cope with inclines of between 8 and 10 degrees. Plus, if you weigh towards the upper end of the 220-pound weight limit, the scooter will crawl sluggishly up more challenging inclines. For a single mode scooter that costs less than $600, the S2 Pro did surprisingly well. Hiboy has fitted the S2 Pro with 2 rear spring shock absorbers, but they leave you wanting more. The solid tyres are at fault here. They have no give, meaning they can't effectively soak up the cracks, bumps and lumps in the terrain underfoot. The S2 Pro would be better equipped if Hiboy had moved one of the springs from the rear to the front. After all, the front wheel is always the first one to feel the impact of the ground below. The S2 Pro flaunts an electronic thumb brake and a mechanical disc brake, and when combined the S2 Pro has an effective stopping power. It's actually able to come to a stop in 4.3 meters from 15 miles per hour, which is better than the average braking distance of most other budget scooters. By comparison, the TURBOANT M10 takes around 4.9 meters to stop, while the X7 Pro and Horizon both take around 5.2 meters. Surprisingly, the electronic brake is actually relatively strong, and this plays a pivotal role in slowing your momentum. In 6 hours, you can go from empty to full. This is reasonably standard for the size, the battery and range on offer. And as we've seen with other Hiboy models, the charging port is unusually located at the top of the handlebar post as opposed to being in the deck where the battery is stored. The upside of this though is greater protection from the elements. Coming home late from work or going for a nighttime ride shouldn't pose too much of a problem with the S2 Pro. It's equipped with a high mounted headlight, which is an improvement on most, but as with most scooters, I do still recommend strapping on an additional, more powerful headlight if you plan on riding at night regularly. Plus, the integrated side lights and tail lights are a couple of other nice features that keep those around you alert to your whereabouts. The mobile app is a modern feature that you don't see all too often. It allows you to see real-time riding statistics and keep track of your battery power, but I'll let you in on a little secret. You can even adjust the acceleration strength and the responsiveness of its electronic brake. And it's available on both iOS and Android, and you simply just have to download it and then pair it via Bluetooth with your scooter, and it's quick and easy. The app is a nice to have feature, but it's certainly not a need to have. You can think of it like the cherry on top of the cake. The S2 Pro is equipped with a digital lock to bolster its security. It certainly ups the ante when compared to its main rival, the TURBOANT X7 Pro, but misses a trick when compared to similar scooters like the GoTrax G4, which not only matches the S2 Pro with a digital lock, but also sports an inbuilt cable lock for enhanced security. Once enabled, the throttle will disengage and the front wheel will become locked into place, therefore preventing anyone from pushing it away. However, let's not forget that the scooter only weighs 36.3 pounds, so if a thief really wants your scooter, they can still pick it up and run off with it. That's the review of the Hiboy S2 Pro. If you like what you saw, you can either pick it up by scanning this QR code here or clicking the links in the description. As always, I'll provide links for all of the scooters that I've recommended as alternatives, and if you need any more information, why not come over to electricscooterinsider.com, where we have a bunch of reviews and guides. If you found value from the review, do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe to become an Electric Scooter Insider. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.